Welcome to the Everyday Heroes podcast sponsored by Kofkin Bond Co. Today, we have Dr. Lillian Nejad joining us, a highly respected clinical psychologist with more than 25 years of experience working in public mental health, university research and teaching, and private practice. She's an author, speaker, and creator of the Skills for Life programs, helping people build resilience, manage anxiety, improve sleep, and navigate life with confidence. Dr. Lillian is passionate about making psychology practical, accessible, and genuinely life-changing. Enjoy the podcast.
Dr. Lillian Nejad, welcome to the Kofkin Bond podcast, Everyday Heroes. You are a repeat offender, so welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I think you're actually one of the first club members I ever had on the podcast.
Yeah, I
Yes.
remember the day that you asked me to come up. I think it was the first time I met you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So that was very quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Hi, I'm Tony.
honored.
Would you like
Thank
would
you.
you like to be a podcast guest? When I actually, that very first time I met you, it was actually due to the fact that I knew you were looking at developing an app, which you now have, bring it out to market, which I will very happily disclose that I am on your advisory board as well for Contain Your Brain.
We're happy to have you.
No, and I love working with yourself and Brenton. But it was the reason why I came up and asked you about it was because I did see, and especially coming out of COVID, so 3 years ago now, coming out of COVID, a bit of a mental health epidemic really starting to come out of it. So I was very interested from an employer's perspective about Contain Your Brain and what it does and how it helps my colleagues and myself as well, anyone who actually was to use it. But where did the idea of Contain Your Brain first come from?
Well, Contain Your Brain actually came from me doing work with my clients in my clinical practice. It's actually based on a strategy that I've used since I started as a psychologist, which is since the late 90s. And the strategy is from the 80s, so it's quite an old, established research, evidence-based strategy. And what it does is it helps you worry less. And strategy is called worry time. And what it is it basically, instead of you letting yourself worry all day or all night, which can ruin your focus during the day or your sleep at night, you actually set aside time to worry. And then in your worry time, you address your problems and your concerns effectively. So I was explaining this strategy to one of my clients. He happened to be a legal professional and he had problems with anxiety, but particularly overthinking and worry. And I was explaining the way to do worry time in the 80s way. And the 80s way is you set aside a time and a place to worry. So maybe half an hour at the end of the day, like 5 to 5:30, for instance. And then during the day, you're going to have those concerns and worries come up. And we used to tell people to write them down on pieces of paper and then put them in a container. So that's how I came up with the name Contain Your Brain instead of calling it worry time, because you're actually literally creating boundaries for your worries by containing them in a physical jar or box, and putting that in your worry place. And then at your worry time, you would go and you would open the container and then you could process your worries and problem solve the things that were solvable. But when I was explaining this to my client, I could see his eyes glazing over, like literally. Like I could see that he was not going to do that process. And, sometimes it can be very easy to blame clients for like not doing the strategies. But when I thought about it, I thought this is not a very practical strategy when we think about how we live today compared to how we lived 20, 30 years ago. No one's writing things down on pieces of paper. People are all over the place, are very mobile. And also, it's not a very private way to do the strategy. So no one wants their private concerns on little bits of paper. Even if they're carrying it in their briefcase or bag, someone might come across it or see it. So when I was thinking about that, I was like, oh, but maybe if it was an app, he would do this strategy. And so I went looking to see if there was already an app, and I saw one. and it was terrible. It was just, it wasn't the whole process, and it just wasn't, like, the user experience was not great. It was too simplistic. It might have been good for, like, maybe a 7-year-old to use, like, that level. So I thought, well, there's a gap here. I think this might be a good idea, but I'm not sure. And it just so happened that I had delivered a webinar to a business community, and it was about worry. And I had discussed worry time in the webinar. And one of the people who attended, his name is Brenton Cannizzaro. He had attended. Yes, he's lovely. And he had come up to me a month later, and he said, "You know what? Like, that strategy worry time. Like, I'd never heard of it. And I started using it, and it's, like, amazing. And I like, thank you so much for doing that," which is obviously, like, what everyone wants to hear when you deliver something like that. I was very happy that it was helpful to him. So a year later, I had this conversation with my client, and I was like, "Who do I ask, like, if an app is a good idea for this strategy?" And I thought immediately of Brenton. I didn't know Brenton. I had only met him that one time, but I knew that he was a digital designer, and I also knew he knew the strategy and that he used it, so he would understand. I wouldn't have to explain that part to him. So I just called him randomly, and I said, "Hi, Brenton. Remember me? I'm Lillian." And, and he's like, "Oh, yes, I remember you." I'm like, "Look, I'm going to ask you something super random. I just had this idea. I just want to run it by you and make sure, like, to ask you if this is a good idea or not." So I told him the idea. And then he said, "Normally, when people call me and ask me about an idea, they're usually pretty bad. But I actually think this one's a good one. It's very specific. It's something that would lend itself to an app." And, um, and he offered to help me, create the tech specifications, because of course, I had no idea about apps at that
Yeah.
stage. I had developed digital
I was
products.
going to say, you've done digital products in the past, and
Yeah.
you've also worked in universities and things like that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So of course, I had used apps, and I'd also created, like, audio and video digital products to help people with stress and sleep, and done recordings and things like that for relaxation and mindfulness. But I hadn't an app is like a completely different thing. It wasn't something I would be able to do by myself. So Brenton generously offered his time to help me develop those specifications and to source a software developer to make it. And we worked on that for 3 months together. And again, he did this just to be nice and help, like, it wasn't a commercial arrangement at all at that stage. And then after 3 months, I just recognized, like, what a gem he is, but also, like, he was doing half the work, you know? And so I suggested to Brenton, to come on board 50-50, and we do it together. And he was, like, really happy with that. And so we started the company, and he's the tech project management design lead for
Yeah.
Contain Your Brain, and I'm the clinical content lead for Contain Your Brain, and it works really
Oh, you're
beautifully.
a tremendous team, and I've witnessed that firsthand. But you are a tremendous team together as well, which is why it's produced such a wonderful product as well at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we have a motto. It is, "When you put people with different skills and the same values together, great things can happen." And I really believe that for our team.
It's a
And
wonderful motto.
yeah, um, it's true.
Yeah. Can I ask, you mentioned a few things there, a few words: anxiety, stress, and worry.
Mhm.
S- We live in a world today where there seems to be a lot of people self-diagnosing because whether it be AI has said this is what you have, or Dr. Google. So many people look up what they potentially have before they go to the doctor they have.
Yeah.
Um, the From that perspective, with these self-diagnoses, there's a huge difference between worry and anxiety. I mean, anxiety can be a whole lot of different levels, of course, but I'll get your thought on that, obviously. So,
Right.
as a medical professional in this field, but sometimes is it dangerous when people do say, I'm suffering anxiety, where it actually could just be worried about a certain thing? Because we all worry about something every day or several times a day.
Yeah, so the thing is, we also all experience anxiety every day.
Yeah.
But
So
like
explain anxiety
yes, I
then.
will,
Yeah.
because I think that this is where we get in trouble. There's not a lot of nuance online. People talk about anxiety and they mean 10 different things.
It can be crippling, but it could also just be really bad worrying, couldn't it?
Right. So anxiety is basically like a normal physiological and psychological reaction to
Shallow
perceived threat.
breathing, stuff like that.
So
So
it
yeah,
has those physical
yeah,
symptoms, like shallow breathing or sweating or shaking. Also, like internally, you might feel like stomach upset, or you might, might bring on a headache or something like that. But it's more than just the physical aspect. But all of those things happen for a reason. So there's a function to anxiety. I think that people will often label anxiety and other distressing states of being, like sadness or anger, as negative emotions. And they're not negative. They all serve a function. We all experience those emotions for a reason. But anything that's functional can be dysfunctional. So the way I try to explain anxiety is like, first, don't think of it as a negative experience. It's actually there to protect you and to keep you alive. So you don't want to get rid of anxiety. You just want it to function well for you. And you want to be able to recognize what's functional versus dysfunctional
trains coming
anxiety.
towards you, get out of the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Anxiety will just kick in and you don't have time to think about it. What should I do? What are my options here? Right? It's just putting you in a position where you fight or flee or freeze in order to protect yourself. And that's what we want it to do. Now, dysfunctional anxiety is when it's lasting too long, it's too frequent, it's firing when there's no threat, right? So sometimes that happens. Sometimes people have like a panic reaction and they don't understand it. There's no threat in the environment. There's nothing like, I'm not worried about anything. And all of a sudden I can't breathe. And, like I feel like I'm having a heart attack. Like that's the panic experience. It feels awful. And it does feel like it's coming out of the blue. When you see a psychologist, for instance, and you unpack it, then you can figure out like why it's kind of come out like that. But in the moment, it feels terrible. Now that's dysfunctional anxiety. Worrying excessively is dysfunctional anxiety. Worry is your thoughts expression of anxiety.
Okay.
So worry is also there to protect you. It's not all bad.
Yeah.
If you worry about a presentation that you have to give tomorrow, um, and that worry motivates you to prepare and plan, it's doing its job,
Absolutely.
right? But if that worry leads to you ruminating about it, procrastinating, right? Putting your head in the sand, not showing up because you just, too worried, avoiding it altogether.
Sounds like me preparing for an exam.
Right. That's dysfunctional.
Yes.
And then we have this third tier, which is disordered, right? So this is the problem when you are online or talking to AI or looking at TikTok, like about what anxiety is. They're not differentiating between those three levels.
Yeah.
There's normal functional anxiety that you need to survive and you don't want to get rid of. There's dysfunctional anxiety that's just not working well for you. That doesn't mean it's disordered.
Yeah.
It just means like there are times where it's not working well and it's impacting your life negatively. Disordered is when it's significantly impacting your life negatively for an extended period of time. Often for some of the anxiety disorders, it's a couple of weeks. For others, 6 months
Yeah.
or more would be the parameters of time. Um, but yeah, if it's not significantly and negatively affecting your personal, social, work, school life, but it sometimes is like you're having moments where it's not working for you. That's just dysfunctional. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything about it. In fact, it's better to do something about it as early as possible because anxiety is very treatable, but it's also very preventable. And you can use early intervention strategies to deal with maybe those moments where it's not working as well as it should for you so that it doesn't lead to disordered anxiety.
Does it get to the stage? Well, actually, just go back one step. There was a period there, not so long ago, about a year and a half ago or so, where for the space of about 3 months, I constantly woke up at 3:22.
Uh,
And it's just like my brain all of a sudden got so used to just waking up at 3:22 to worry about something. It was whatever that something was that was occurring that day
yeah.
or that week. And it seemed to be the case where it just was habitually happening now because it was the same time. It was
Uh-huh.
just like, well, it's 3:22, now wake up and worry, and then you can't get back to sleep,
Yeah.
because you've always got that on your brain. Now, for me, because for 15 years, I've done meditation every single morning. And I went back to the practice of also doing it for 20 minutes before I went to bed at night.
Uh-huh.
And that really started to help to the point where it just, it sounds awful, but my mind was blank by the time I actually went to bed.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't start thinking, you're so tired before you lie in bed. The moment you lie in bed, everything floods your brain. Well, that was what was happening. As business owners, that seems to be a common occurrence, with business owners. Are they worrying about cash flow? Are they worrying about this client? Are they worrying about a whole range of things that could actually occur? The- One of the things that I like about what you've said is that writing it down. So I've always written in a journal,
Uh-huh.
but I always had one rule to that journal, and I do it every morning, and it doesn't have to be long, it could just be a paragraph some mornings. I was never allowed to write anything negative.
Uh-huh.
So even if I was writing about something that I was particularly worried about, I would actually I'll try to write it in a way that, okay, whilst my brain is active right now and it's not flooded with a whole lot of dopamine from social media or having just done a gym workout or something like that and having an endorphin rush, basically it's a case of, well, here's what I'm thinking, and I just start writing down what came into my brain about what I thought a solution might be.
Uh-huh.
I've never gone back and read one page of anything I've written, and I've journals upon journals upon journals,
Yeah.
but it seemed to the process of actually writing it seemed to actually be really positive for me.
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
Yeah, writing, typing, say, in respect to contain your brain in this case, but
Yeah.
just every morning is just something I do, and it might just be that I'm not hungry and I don't want breakfast today.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, you've touched on so many things there that I can comment on. The first thing is, yeah, I think sleep is like, or difficulty falling and staying asleep is one of the top concerns among the general community and business owners specifically.
Mm.
I hear that all the time. Either they're too wound up, they're thinking too much, before bed and they can't fall asleep, or like what you said, you fall asleep, but then you wake up in the middle of the night, your mind's racing with worry or concerns or maybe random thoughts, and you can't calm yourself down. Um, one of the strategy, I mean, you've touched on many of the strategies that I would actually talk to my clients about with those issues. I think one of them is really about calming your body. And I often will suggest a strategy called progressive muscle relaxation for that. That is probably the one um, relaxation exercise that is the most evidence based. And I think it was developed in like 1938. So there's a lot of evidence and rich evidence behind that one. And really, all it is systematically tensing and then relaxing your muscles from head to toe or from toe to head. And normally it's a guided practice that, instead of you.
Sounds like exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it has that physical aspect to it, which I think can, for some people, they like that because relaxation exercises sometimes people don't like to sit still and, just listen. But this is an active relaxation exercise. But what the really good thing about it is that it can help for just before bed. It can help to lower your overall level of stress so that when you get really stressed in moments, your baseline is lower so you can handle it better. And you can use it if you've got something stressful coming up to do just before to calm yourself down. So it's helpful for all of those reasons. And if you do it consistently and frequently at the start, the idea is that you won't need to do it the same way forever. It's a skill that you learn so that you understand the difference between tension and relaxation in your body, so that eventually you can just tell yourself to relax, and in a few seconds you relax. So that's the idea. That's really the idea for most psychological skills that we teach is um, not to have to do the exact skill the exact same way forever, but to learn it enough so that it becomes easier and more efficient over time. And that's really the same for the other skill that you brought up, which is writing things down. So contain your brain has that aspect of it where you write down your worries when they're inconvenient so that you can deal with them later. And that is so helpful for sleep. So it is Contain Your Brain's really not just a stress, anxiety, focus app, it's also a sleep app. Because one of the most common reasons, as you've just pointed out, for people not being able to fall asleep or stay asleep is because their minds are dysregulated. They're just thinking, worrying, and really, for us, it's not the best time to problem solve anything when we're trying to sleep. So it makes no sense for our mind to start thinking about those things then. But our brains are like, well, no one's bothering me now, and it's quiet. So this seems like a good time to bring up all of those concerns, right? Right, as
Yep.
soon as your head hits the pillow, it's like, oh, my brain's like, oh, this is, let me point out all of these things that you need to think about, about today or about tomorrow or about a week from now.
Yeah.
So it's really about training your brain to know that this isn't the convenient time. It's actually at 5 to 5:30 or
Yeah.
whenever you decide to set it. And if you have that meeting with yourself from 5 to 5:30, then it's not going to kick in just before bed. And it's
Yes.
not going to kick in the middle of the night. And if it does, all you have to do is say, "Oh, don't worry, I've got a time for you. I'm going to think about you from 5 to 5:30." And the research shows that that works. So the research actually shows that if you try to suppress your thoughts, usually, like that's people's strategy for worry. I'll just tell myself to stop worrying. Or other people might say, just stop worrying about it.
Very easily
It
said,
doesn't
isn't it?
work.
So that's right.
And it doesn't work according to the research either. So if you suppress your thoughts, it may work like for a few minutes or something like that. But what ends up happening is it has a rebound effect. So it comes at you even more later because worry is anxiety. So it's trying to tell you there's a threat, right? And so if you're like, I don't want to think about you, I'm squashing you, stop it, ignore it. It's like, no, but this is a threat. You need to think about the threat. It's not going to go away. It's going to come back harder. It's like, no, listen, 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 listen. But if you actually say, oh, I'm listening, I'm taking you seriously, I'm going to jot you down, I've made an appointment for you, and we're going to think about how to deal with this issue at this time, your brain is much more likely to let it go.
One of the things I actually learned in meditation, I studied transcendental meditation,
Mhm.
and um, my monk who taught me this, Paolo, I will return your call. But one of the things is that I made the comment to him that it's 20 minutes, but sometimes it's very deep. Not falling asleep, but I can feel it's very deep. And other times I can get something that just comes in. And one of the things he actually taught me, which was great, is that when it's came to you whilst you're in meditation, so in other words, your mind doesn't just go blank. We all know that.
Mhm.
But it was a case of that it's come to you for a reason. Just say, thank you. I'll deal with you later and push it aside. So similar to what you just said. So it's basically just
Right.
taking it, acknowledging it, and
Yes.
in this case, subconsciously, just pushing it aside. But what's interesting when that does happen is I do deal with it.
Mhm.
But it seems to be like that from what meditation has taught me is that sometimes you can be in a cyclone, but of course, in the eye of the cyclone is so calm. And if you're actually can stay calm, and we don't always, obviously, but if you can stay calm, you can, in that eye of the cyclone, you can actually see everything going on around you and say, that's relevant, that's not. Being in situations like that is really quite interesting that I've
It
found. Just
is.
being able to accept, take it, acknowledge, and say, I'll deal with you later.
That's right. I think that the key is the non-judgmental aspect of that.
Mm,
Mindfulness and meditation is about observing non-judgmentally. And I think that that can be the hardest part for people because as soon as they think or feel something that they don't like, then the immediate thought for many people is, I shouldn't feel or think that way. And when you put a should in any sentence, that's a judgment. And that judgment then leads to guilt or shame. And then instead of just feeling anxious or sad or whatever the initial emotion was, you've got that plus guilt and shame on top of it. And then you've got a big ball of something
that's right.
that is much more difficult to deal with
Yeah.
and also distracting.
Yeah.
If you spend your time judging, you're not going to spend your time actually dealing with the issue.
Does brain health and sleep, there's certainly a common denominator that I've found between both. Bad sleep and having a good day doesn't seem to go hand in hand. Um, since I've been using the Whoop now for probably about 3 years, it's not an advertisement for Whoop, but it's one of the things that I've actually, if you ever look at my sleep patterns, as I said, there was a period, a year and a half ago, that wasn't the most conducive period in my life.
Yeah.
But my sleep might have been 5 hours sleep a night, awake for nearly 2 hours a night, and maybe less than an hour of REM and deep sleep. It was basically the time that I was asleep. It was predominantly light sleep. But what I also found though was being habitual. So for example, for me, I've set my brain to wake up before my alarm because I don't like waking up to my alarm.
Mhm.
So if I wake up to my alarm, I've got the phone in my hand. So if I set the alarm for 5, I set my brain to be awake at 4:45 every morning. But then breath work, the meditation, and then going to the gym, which is in my garage, every morning, that sets me up for a wonderful day. I
Yeah.
never miss meditation, but if I miss the other two, I'm still I know it in myself. I don't tend to have I start to get sleepy at 3 p.m. Whereas if I do that in the morning, I end up having a great day and basically early to bed as a result. But also too, by just that's now part of my life. It doesn't matter how I feel. Discipline is about doing it even when you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But by actually having that morning routine every single morning, 7 days a week, the next component is my sleep has improved dramatically.
Mhm.
I'm at 7 hours sleep a night now. Very little wake up time. Not drinking a gallon of water before bed helps. But very little wake up time. And of that 7 hours, it might be about 2.5 hours of REM and 2.5 hours of deep sleep now. So my recovery, according to my Whoop, has actually gone through the roof, and my heart rate variability is magnificent. My heart rate is down. But one of the things that I've actually found with the Whoop as well, because we will talk about the benefit of, you know, not eliminating worry, but addressing it, things
Mm.
like that. I've actually
Yeah.
found, if I wake up and my stress level according to Whoop is like zero point 0.3 out of a maximum of 3, let's say, so for example, zero point 0.3, when I do my breath work, because it's taking the deep breaths and then holding your breath for as long as you can.
Mhm.
But it's interesting from holding your breath, my stress level can get up to 1.5, that you can actually see how it rises. And then when you're just breathing like the box breathing again, it actually starts to come back down again. So
Yeah.
you can actually see that pattern through there. And then on meditation, it might start at 1 after my breath work, but by the time it's finished 20 minutes later, it's like zero point 0.1, because you've just calmed your body down the entire time. So I think the brain seems to just be this magnificent thing that if you, for my case, as you know, I went and sought someone to speak to and get some thoughts and ideas and to help, but also just the sleep, the importance of sleep just seemed to be turned my life around over the last 6 months.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
without taking supplements to go to sleep.
yes. I
Yeah.
mean, often people will lean on supplements and
Yeah.
medications, and it's not, which can help in the short term, and that's what they're there really for, is to help in the short term. But over the long term, it's actually better to understand what you need. What are the obstacles? They're different for everybody. They're not always the same.
Yeah.
And also the ways of helping you get better sleep are different for everybody too. There are some standard things though. So some of the things that you said, sometimes putting yourself in a sleep routine where you go to sleep at the same time and get up at the same time can be very helpful for people who are having trouble with insomnia. It's one of the first things that we would suggest to people having trouble with sleep. Um, you've found this lovely routine for yourself that's
It
not
works
on
for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
only good for sleep, but it's good for your stress levels during the day. And I think sleep and anxiety and stress are all linked and they all feed each other. If you feel very stressed about work, for instance, and I might actually distinguish stress from anxiety as well, because I think that those are used interchangeably, because the symptoms are very similar. But stress is, so we've talked about anxiety being that physiological reaction to perceived threat. Stress is the tension that we experience due to overwhelming demands in the environment. So the cause for the basically the similar symptoms, that physical symptoms of feeling very uncomfortable and maybe shaky and sweaty, um, the cognitive symptoms of worry, or I can't cope, or what's wrong with me, the behavioral symptoms like I can't sleep, or pacing, or procrastination. They're similar, but they're not the same thing. But they feed each other. So if you're stressed and anxious, you're not going to be able to sleep. If you're not able to sleep for an extended period of time, you get more stressed and anxious, and the cycle continues.
Yeah.
And you can intervene on that cycle by calming your body down and calming your mind down. Um, and then also putting some of those sleep hygiene practices in place. And I think also, I think really worry is a hidden habit that's driving anxiety, draining productivity, and disrupting sleep. And I don't think that people have really targeted that very well, even in the evidence based treatments for insomnia, which is called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI. They address worry, but they don't address it enough. So when people start having sleep problems, there's two types of worries that CBTI will um, let people understand and know about. One are the worries that you won't get to sleep. Like if you can't sleep for several nights in a row, then of course you're going to worry that you're not going to get to sleep that night. But unfortunately, that worry leads to you feeling anxious, which is counterproductive. So it's about calming those worries down. The second type of worry that interrupts sleep is worries that you won't cope the next day. Right? If I don't get to sleep, I won't be able to, whatever it is. I won't be able to do the presentation well. I will be too tired to take my kids to
I
school,
don't do
whatever it
Monday
is.
morning flights to Sydney anymore.
Right. I'll miss my flight.
I could not sleep on a Sunday night.
Right.
Just about that, I'm going to miss my flight. But booking a flight for a Tuesday morning, it might be on a 7 a.m. flight or a 7:30 a.m.
Yeah.
No problem sleeping on a Monday night. But on that Sunday night, for some reason, if I had the
Mm.
flight on a Monday morning, I struggled with sleeping.
There was an association there
Yeah.
that was created.
And I've
So
never missed a flight, but
yeah, but it's a
yeah,
it's a common worry. But so CBTI will cover kind of those worries that are sleep associated. But if we actually talk to people who have trouble sleeping, it's the general worries that they have about their lives or their work lives that are causing the sleep problems. Maybe in addition to, I'm not going to be able to get to sleep and I won't cope the next day. But the overwhelming majority are those. And I think what people don't realize, and what I think Contain Your Brain really helps with, is to recognize what worries are worth worrying about.
yeah,
because the research really shows that over 90% of our worries either don't happen, or if they do happen, the result is not as bad as what you think it's going to be, or you're going to cope better than you think that you're going to cope.
Yeah.
So that means that we're carrying around all this mental clutter for no reason. Someone's put it the other day. I was watching this documentary about John Candy,
Yeah.
and they talked about him having anxiety. And his brother said his mind was overweight.
Okay.
I was like, that's a really good way of putting it, because you've
As
got
soon as you
all of
mentioned John Candy, I just thought of the big jovial fella. So when you said
yes.
his mind was overweight, I thought, wow, okay.
Yeah, so he
Yeah.
was known for being,
Yeah.
overweight, obviously, but his brother said his mind was overweight as well. It was carrying all of these concerns and worries that were potentially unnecessary, but no one really targets worry. We talk about other symptoms, like, that are targeted, like the physical ones or sleep even, but worry hasn't really been, targeted, as well.
There's two things that I do want to touch on, being stigma and resilience, but you just prompted me on another question there. I remember when my eldest was, he would have been, still a teenager at the time. I don't think he was 18 yet, but there was a girl that he had a mad crush on, and he wanted to ask her out. And he was quite a confident young man, but there still seems to be that difference between somebody who is pessimistic or optimistic, or overly pessimistic.
Right.
So the two extremes. Um, and he just felt that this young lady was out of his league. And I said, well, why don't you just very nicely, she knows who you are, you know each other. She's not going to repel you if you go up and say hello, so it's, why don't you just ask her out? He said, well, what happens if she says no? And my response was, well, what happens if she says yes? So it all comes down to how you ask at the end of the day. But it was interesting. They did dating for about 6 months, so so it's worked.
She
But
said yes.
yeah, she said yes.
I
So
can yeah. I think one of the things that we talk to clients about when they worry about an outcome is, what is the worst that could happen?
yeah, in
There's
this
this
case, he knows where he stands, and he
yeah,
goes and finds his next crush.
right. I
Yeah,
mean, it won't feel good. I mean,
no,
it's not
no,
about saying, positive thinking, you have to be, like, happy about it,
no,
whatever
no,
outcome it
yeah,
is, but it's like, it's not it's you're gonna be able to cope,
yeah,
and that's part of what resilience is. There's 3 factors that build resilience. One is your relationships. The most important factor
yeah,
is your relationships. Do you have close, supportive relationships around you?
yeah.
The second is self belief. Can I do it? Self efficacy. Can I cope? Am I capable? Backing yourself essentially. And the third is skills. What are do you have the skills you need? And the reason I think the relationships are number one, according to the research, is because they're often the models for skills,
And longevity of life.
and they also help you internalize self belief,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't have the relationships, you're less likely, or at least at an earlier age, less likely to have what you need to build your own sense of self and identity and confidence. And also, you are less likely to have those models in your life that you need to develop skills like interpersonal skills and communication skills and stress management skills and, all the things that are like helpful for you to have a healthy and good quality of life down the track.
If we talk about resilience, then we're both parents. So our children are of different ages. But from the perspective of, if a parent was to overly protect their child, never let them fall over and scrape their knee or hurt themselves, or continually pump them up when sometimes they maybe shouldn't be pumped up so much. But it's does that help? Well, is that detrimental to their resilience when they become adults as well? So it's, if they sometimes you just have to try something, and if you fail, as you said,
Yeah.
what's the worst there's things going to happen? Now, if you're going to try something and you fail at it and it potentially causes death, well, then maybe don't
Yeah,
do it.
dangerous
Yeah,
things,
that's
sure.
right. But
Yeah.
if we're just talking about like the example I gave earlier and asking somebody out,
Mhm.
it's it's not a life or death situation. As you
Mhm.
said, you might not feel well or good about it if you got rejected. Uh, but from that perspective, is a child who becomes an adult reflective sometimes of the way they were parented, either spoilt rotten and let to get away with anything, or overly protected, and when they would get out to the world, they've never faced, you know, anything that has been harsh, things like that, or they might not have developed their emotional intelligence, let's say. Is that something that can actually be reflective of somebody's, lower level of resilience than, say, somebody else who might have a higher level of resilience as well?
Yeah, I
Are
think
they interrelated, or it could just it is, okay.
well, there are a number of factors
Yeah,
that would feed into someone having lower resilience. There's individual differences in resilience can be genetic, they can be biological, they
yeah.
can be environmental, and
So you
parenting
could
is part
so
of
you
that.
could so you could have the same parents from that perspective and the same DNA and 2 siblings, but be 2
You
completely
see that
different
all the
levels.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Every
definitely
right?
my 2 sons are complete opposites.
Yeah, my kids are different too.
Yeah.
And we also tend to label things and people in very global ways. So, for instance, with resilience, we're talking about people either having high or low, but really in reality, if we really think about it, like even with our own kids, they'll be resilient in some situations and not in others.
Yeah.
So it's not that they're globally high or low in resilience. They have resilience, but they're applying it in different ways in different situations. And so if you like think about yourself as either having high or low, but particularly if you have low, I would invite you to actually think about all the situations that you're experiencing in your life and really know like which ones do you actually show more resilience in? And which ones are you a bit weaker or lower? And then how can you use the times where you apply it well in those situations where you don't? Because we're not simplistic, humans are not simple creatures. We're quite complicated and we don't make a lot of sense like in a
Uh,
lot of ways. And so if we're
when we start
defining our
arguing with ourselves in our head, that's when I get a bit concerned.
yeah, so
Yeah.
defining ourselves in global ways is one of like the cognitive distortions that we would talk to our clients about. The cognitive distortions are basically distorted patterns of thinking. Global labels, whether you do it to yourself or others, is one of those patterns. It's just not reality if you really look at the whole picture. Another distortion that I already spoke about is the shoulds. Uh, there's no real reason for shoulds. Shoulds leads to guilt and shame. What you could say instead is, I would like, or I would prefer to, or I want. But shoulds really, there's not much use for that. Another one's black and white or all or nothing thinking, right? So if you don't succeed at that, you're a failure. Well, is that actually true? How many other places or things or situations or circumstances in your life are successes?
Mm,
And can you actually maybe think, you know, dialectically, which is that if there's one thing that the opposite is also true. So maybe we can be successes and failures at the same time.
yeah.
And we're all that. So isn't that okay then? Like that's just part of the human experience.
Is it also about perception as well? And, I'll give you an example. I don't know if you're going to the fireside chat with Grant Hackett.
I will be
Yes.
there.
So I know Grant very well. So I finally got him to go down to Cub to do it.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
so Tara at the time was harassing me. "Can you get him to?" And I said, "I'll try." So it's,
Mhm.
and he's a wonderful guy, but Grant is a magnificent CEO, but everyone knows him from his, obviously, his 3 gold
Swimming.
medals
Mhm.
and the other medals he doesn't like to talk about. But the thing is that when he spoke about those other medals that weren't gold, that came from relays especially, he said, you might have 3 members in the team that 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10s, and then the 4th member who's a 4 out of 10. Now, that person who's a 4, any of these 3 could on any day be on the dais of an Olympic final in that particular event. They could all medal. The 4 out of 10, though, people think, oh, he let down the team or she let down the team. That 4 out of 10 is the 4th best person in the country.
Mhm.
So, and I remember when we were talking about this, because he was talking about it from a sales team perspective as well.
Right.
Will the 9 out of 10s and 10 out of 10s drop to the 4 out of 10 standard? Because why are we going so hard and we're sharing these bonus 4 ways, as an example? Or will they be able to bring the 4 out of 10 up to that level? Or is that person just in the wrong job? They might be a 10 out of 10 in a different role, as an example.
Mhm.
So he spoke about it from that perspective. And I started thinking about that and I thought, wow, that was a great way of putting it, because that made me, as a swimmer in my event that I wanted to compete in the Olympics in, a 2 out of 10. But I was ranked 8th in Australia. I didn't make the Olympics. I didn't
Mhm.
make the Olympic team. So it was really interesting, the thought process on that, because I specifically remember when I was swimming in the final to try and qualify and finishing last. And I was, my whole life, all years and years and years of early mornings for my father and I, because he had to drive me to swimming, I was devastated, absolutely devastated. And I remember Dad just being so happy for me, because he said, you swam a PB in the final. It's the fastest you've ever, you didn't make it, but it was the fast. If you didn't qualify and you're 2 seconds off your best time ever, you have every reason to be upset, but you've gone so well. So on one hand, was I 2 out of 10, or I gave it my I gave it my all.
Yeah.
Now, I failed to make the goal,
Yeah.
but I'm so much better than so many other people in the world, not just in Australia. So it was different how his view on it was, congratulations. My view on it was, my whole world has just flown up and I will never get out of bed anymore. So I hate my life for
Yeah,
for the next 7
and
minutes at
there's room
least.
for both views,
Yeah.
honestly, because it's okay to feel really
He
disappointed.
cried with happiness.
Yeah.
I cried with absolute horror and devastation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up Grant, because I saw him at a mental health event maybe, I wanna say 7, 8 years ago, and he was one of the speakers, and he spoke about resilience. And we were just talking about this, so it's really interesting that you brought it up. Because I often quote what he said to people that I see. He was talking about how, you need so much resilience to be an elite athlete in any
Oh,
sport,
yeah.
right? Especially an individual sport,
Yeah. And he was
which he
beyond,
had,
beyond.
which he
Yeah.
had,
Yeah.
right? But he was talking about how when his marriage broke down,
Yeah.
that he behaved in ways that he wasn't proud of, and his life felt like it fell apart. And so he didn't have resilience in that situation. And
Yes.
it's a really good example of someone who has it in one circumstance and situation, but doesn't have it in another.
Yeah.
And that just makes him human.
Yes.
Like, there's reasons for that.
Yeah.
And I think, again, like, that's something that people really need to think about, not looking at it as like someone's either resilient or they're not.
Yeah.
We have so many aspects of our lives.
Yeah.
It's just like patience, like, I'm not patient in the car. I'm not patient sometimes with my kids, but put a client in front of me, I'm the most patient person on earth. I think my clients get the best parts of me.
Boy, Anna's mentioned that about me in respect to my job as well. When I'm trying to explain it to her, I have zero patience.
Right? Like, yeah, everyone thinks I'm like the calmest person in the
You
world.
are.
I'm not. But you see me and like, I am. I'm not, that's not who
No,
I
you are
am.
genuinely
But
a
I
wonderful
am
person.
that way, but I'm also lots of other ways.
Yes.
And so we're not
We
all
do
the
back for
same
Richmond
everywhere.
Football Club, so I'm sure
The
you lose
best
your
team,
temper. I'm sure
obviously.
you lose your temper quite frequently at the moment. So
No, I'm really satisfied with our 5 amazing years. How about you?
so let's move on. So, yeah. But
Yeah.
it is interesting, though, that it's not resilience in every aspect of your life, though.
Right. But it's never too late to build your resilience. So if
Yeah.
you're finding that you're not resilient in certain aspects, you can build it.
Well, let's talk about stigma then. And I'm going to talk about it from a male's perspective. reached out to find somebody to just help me with my understanding where I was, a year and a half ago. And still see her today. It's just quarterly now. We just have a quarterly catch up now. And she was absolutely magnificent for me.
Great.
I couldn't speak more highly of her. She really, and she wasn't, I gave myself a rule. If I was going to go and see somebody and seek help or an understanding of where I was at and why I was at, I had to be 100% honest. But then I started to realize, am I being 100% honest in my perception and my view and my story? Or, in other words, it actually helped me listen to myself a lot more and think, how much of this is my own doing? How much of this has been me not wanting to address an issue that needed to be addressed and just let it well up and dwell up and dwell up? And then all of a sudden, I looked in the mirror and I saw my father's reflection, because that's what my dad did. He just kept it all in, always on the surface, try to be calm and all the rest of it. I only ever heard him swear once, and he had Alzheimer's. He didn't remember doing it, but it was, it's interesting that this stigma, and especially from a man's perspective of actually going out and seeking help, seems to be lower now,
Yes.
definitely lower now, but it was so high. And I just wanted somebody that I could speak to that didn't know me, didn't
Yeah.
know my family situation, didn't know our business, and actually, here's what I'm thinking and what I'm going through. What can I do? What can I address? What can I change in my life so it's not a repetitive thing that I continue to go through? Because I wasn't enjoying it where I was at.
Right.
Successful business, you know, um, you know, family life was okay and things like that, but it was just like I just wasn't comfortable where I was, and I started to put on a lot of weight because I'm an emotional eater. That's what it is. So if I'm looking fit and healthy, things
We're
are
all
going good in
emotional
my life.
eaters.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
like eating full stop, but emotional eating on top of that was not good.
Yeah. Look, I think that the reason stigma has been so high is because, and this is still going on to a degree, so it's not, we can improve more, but people see asking for help as a sign of weakness. And what it actually is a sign of courage. It is very hard to pick up the phone and ask a stranger for help
Yeah.
and to tell them things that you wouldn't tell anybody. Very, very hard.
Yes, Jenny knows far more about me than
Probably
that.
anybody.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a
What's the norm?
difficult process to
Yeah.
go through.
Yeah.
Just like when I see clients come through the door, that's what I think. I think that person is like the bravest person of like in my world right now. Like that's how I think about my clients.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard. Imagining myself in that situation too. Like it's not easy to trust people, especially if you've had things go on in your life, which most of my clients have,
Mhm.
where their trust has been breached um, time and time again. And now they've actually picked up the phone and made a time to talk to someone they don't know because they recognize that their life isn't what they want it to be and they want to build a better life for themselves. Like that's courage.
Have
That's
you
not weakness.
But asking for help to recognize that you have a repetitive behavior, or the psychologist, psychiatrist, or a counselor that you've been referred to helps you recognize and acknowledge your repetitive behavior that keeps putting you back in the situation. That's what I found really interesting, is because it was over the space of many months that repetitive behavior really started. I became, I was going to use the word anxious of it, but
Hmm.
I actually was more, I started to acknowledge it. Hold on, that's what I do.
Hmm.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
You know, s-
Yeah.
it's
That's really the process. The process is to,
leaving a relationship within 24 hours, jumping into a new relationship, just things like that,
mm,
rather than
right.
letting myself, go through emotions or whatever the
Hmm.
case might actually be, actually let myself heal in a way, so it's just, or, just, okay, I'll just I won't address that because I'll just drop hints and breadcrumbs and they'll pick it up. And they
Right.
don't.
Yeah.
That was the worst one of all. So
Yeah.
it's,
And then you
yeah.
resent it when they can't see it or
Correct.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like,
Yeah.
you never get angry. Why are you angry?
Yeah.
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 I think that self-awareness part is like the first job, like between a client and a therapist is to
Yeah.
raise that level of self-awareness. And then I think the second is to be accepting of yourself.
Yeah.
At the same time as recognizing there's room for improvement, right? And then taking action towards the areas that you want to improve. I think those are like the three: self-awareness, acceptance, action.
Yeah. You spoke earlier about, and this is going back to stigma as well, but you spoke earlier about relationships, community, relationships, etc. And I've heard this being said many times, and as a result of hearing it, I've actually done something about it. So I have a lot of female friends who, like yourself, who we get along really well with, and we can have a chat and a laugh and things like that.
Uh-huh.
And it's actually really good, so it's having the friends with no ulterior motives and things like that. And it's just, you have a great chat and a great laugh. Girls who have good girlfriends, where you catch up on a regular basis, seem to do that quite frequently. Men don't seem to do that.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I made a conscious effort of about 6 months ago is now 2 groups, and I'm about to start my third. There's 6 of us, different people in different groups, and once a month we catch up.
That's great.
And we just catch up and we have dinner together.
Group of men, you mean?
Group of men,
Yeah.
yeah, and we just catch up and we don't talk business with each other.
Uh,
None of us are misogynist, so we all get along quite well with each other, very well.
mhm.
And it's just a case of we talk,
Yeah.
and and there's no Richmond supporters, so it's really so that is one actually. We never bring up football. That's Robert. But I think the thing is, it's actually, and what's interesting too is the group, we come together. I might be that common denominator of inviting who I want to be part of that. We come together in the first dinner as strangers, and then all of a sudden these real groups and friendships really start to form.
Mhm.
And I'm loving that because I didn't do that. I stopped that for 20 years because my whole life is social life, working. At night, I just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I found my group of male friends all dropped away. But then I found it seemed to be a common denominator amongst all of us.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the women are still getting together, and, we have, we're poor of time as well, right? But it's always been a priority to keep those relationships
Yeah.
alive.
Is it
I
because women in general at least show more empathy than men?
I don't know if it's,
I'm not going to say have more empathy because we're
yeah,
talking about a collective group here, not individuals, and it can differ on individuals. Women tend to just, I found, have a bit more empathy than
they're
men.
more willing
Well,
to.
the
Yeah.
ones who are my friends at least.
Yeah.
No, I don't associate with people.
I think women have been socialized better
Yeah,
to create and maintain personal relationships with
yeah,
others. And because of that, they are more willing to share aspects of their lives more freely with each other. And that makes those relationships closer and then also makes you want to keep them alive. And, like I have a lot of different friends from different times in my
yeah,
life. And I live in another country too. So I have a lot of friends from the US that I consider best friends still. But it's because I've put that effort.
yeah,
And it hasn't been effortful in the sense of like I've liked to put the effort in, but it still takes time and energy to keep in touch with everybody here and overseas. And that means that if I don't talk to one of my friends or see them for like a year, it's okay. Like as soon as I see them again, it's like the closeness hasn't changed. It's the
yeah,
same level of closeness.
yeah,
Um, and and men aren't as good at the effort part,
yeah.
the planning part. Maybe your frontal lobes aren't. I'm just kidding.
Well, I know. I actually have to make appointments to see my children now.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I think women also they do tend to do a lot of that unseen, um, work of planning and organizing things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like, again, not globally, but, like, I
I
think
was
in
definitely my
general.
mum and dad. Mum all the family friends were mum's friends.
Right.
Yeah, and all the men got together when
Yeah.
all the women got together, but
Yeah.
otherwise they never got together outside of that, the men.
Yeah, and it's not just planning social occasions, it's,
Yeah.
like, planning the doctor's appointments and the dentist appointments and the hair appointments and, like, the family vacations and doing all of that stuff has tended to fall on women, and that's possibly 'cause, we've been expected to do it or we're potentially better at it, I don't know, or, we're picking up the slack. But whatever it is, it's obviously something anybody can do.
Yeah.
So, and especially with your relationships, it's so important to keep those. And I love what you're doing. That sounds amazing. 3 groups that you see
Well,
once
it's
a
2
month?
so far.
2, yeah.
I'm putting the 3rd one together now
That's
because
great.
yeah, but it's sometimes there's 6 of us there, sometimes there's 4 of us there, sometimes 3 of us, but here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, and it might be a $30 or $40 a head. One group, it's every month, another person, they choose a restaurant and they pay the bill.
Uh,
And so there's, over the space of 6 months, it's your shout.
yeah.
But it's just the other group, we just all, whatever the bill is, we split. But it's just, but you choose a restaurant, so, and we're talking about, those lovely little restaurants down Hardware Lane or something like that.
Yeah,
It,
lovely.
you don't have to be a $200 a head
Yeah.
restaurant or anything.
And the intention there is to be with each other
Yeah.
and have those good, supportive, close relationships. Whereas in the past, I think, especially men have gone to, like, if they're feeling stressed or anxious, they've gone to unhealthy coping behaviors. Particularly alcohol is probably the most popular version. And so instead of talking about their problems, they're just drinking. And drinking is helping them escape in the moment, which is why they do it. Like, people drink for a reason because it works in the moment, to help you escape whatever's going on, but it doesn't solve any problems, and it can make problems a lot worse. And it's certainly not helping you kind of create those deeply meaningful relationships with the people that you're with.
Because you see a lot of harm in families that come out of or alcohol and drugs.
Yeah, and gambling as well.
Gambling, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, that's definitely becoming a
Yeah,
big
those
problem.
addictions.
Mhm.
So, you obviously know the industry I'm in. Insurance companies, underwriters, mental health. This is issue that I have with. Now, I do know that insurers, through their definitions and wording in their contracts, have suffered massively from total and permanent disablement payouts due to mental illness,
Mhm,
but that is meant to be totally and permanently disabled for the rest of your life.
mhm.
Now, if somebody engages your service and it worked really well with you, I would assume that you're there to help them. But assume, I know you're there to help. I know you're there to help them. I'm not going to edit that mistake out, but I know you're there to help them.
Yeah.
But it's from the perspective of, it just seems to be that if somebody has gone and sought counseling because they've just gone through a relationship breakup,
Mhm.
or they might be suffering imposter syndrome. How did I build this business that has 30 employees so quickly? And, I'm panicking about it. And,
Yeah.
am I going to have the cash flow? But if I've gone and sought help just to get my thinking right in some type of way,
Yeah.
all of a sudden there's a mental health exclusion put on, which I find, I understand the insurer's perspective on one hand, but I also find it terribly hard because as we said, there's this stigma attached. But if you're not going to go down this route of ruminating on a negative respect over and over and over again, that's what can cause to alcohol abuse. That's what can cause to going home and just, how was your day, dear? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And not opening up and not speaking, or start to isolate yourself from your friendship groups and things like that as well. So, friend, and we spoke about, it seems to be nowadays, if you have a spine, you've got a spine exclusion,
Yeah.
so things like that. So,
Yeah.
how do you find working with, say, with insurers as an example of, they might write to you because client Joe Blogs has put down that he's gone to see Lillian Nejad as his
Mhm.
psychologist because he just went through a marriage breakup and he's just trying to work himself out and not have repetitive behaviors and things like that. How do you respond to an insurer or they mightn't even bother contacting you nowadays and just go bang, put an
Yeah, they
exclusion
don't.
on straight away.
I don't get contacted by insurers. I've been contacted by WorkSafe
Yeah,
for, those kinds of, some clients are involved in those kinds of situations where
yeah,
you have to do reporting. Um, I am obviously very open with my clients if I ever get contacted and what's in the report and, they know everything that goes in the
yes,
report. It's not a secret kind
yes,
of communication, and
yeah,
that would be the same with an insurer if they did contact me.
yeah,
I think the problem is that there shouldn't be any obstacle to seeking help,
yeah,
and I think if people see that as an obstacle, that's a problem. I think also, like, one way of helping people, so it's not an obstacle, like, that I've done, and I think a lot of people have done in my position, is to have a coaching arm of, services. So they're not seeing a clinical psychologist for clinical disorder because often they don't have one, right? We talked about the difference. There's normal dysfunctional, right? Sorry, functional dysfunctional, disordered.
yeah,
Not everyone has a disorder, but they might have some dysfunctional feelings, thoughts, behaviors that they want to deal with. And coaching is a nice way of like thinking about how you can get help with that.
yeah,
And so if I have a coaching arm, which I do, that's not something that I think an insurer would worry about.
yeah.
So that would be one way of,
Well, you don't
um,
actually have to disclose if you're being coached.
right.
So just
So
because the
it's
coach
different.
is a psychologist, it's, so a coach could be anything from that perspective. So it is different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one way around it.
Yeah. So you're not acting as a medical professional when you're coaching, I'm assuming.
Yeah. You're not treating an
Correct.
illness.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. If,
Yeah.
if someone came and they actually had a disorder that needed to be treated, I'd say, well, you actually need a clinical psychologist, not a coach for that. And I hope that other, you know,
Mm.
people who are coaches is unregulated. That's the problem with calling yourself a coach is that anybody can call themselves a coach. So actually, if you're going to engage a coach,
Yeah.
do your research, understand what the experience and qualifications are of the person that you're engaging, because coaches, yeah, can be anything really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Whereas obviously things like psychologist, psychiatrist, GP,
Yeah.
social worker, they're all regulated.
Yeah.
So you know what you're getting to an extent. And if you don't get what you're supposed to get, there's a way that you can, you know, complain or there's a board that's there to protect you.
Yeah.
Whereas with the other unregulated things like therapist, counselor, coach, you don't have those options. You know.
Well, as you know, and I'll revert back to contain your brain if that's okay here. With Contain Your Brain, I actually rang my own personal underwriter, who, my insurance is with AIA.
Mhm.
I rang Merv and I said, Merv, if I implemented this app, here's what it is, here's how it works, showed them the website, etc. If I was to implement this for my team and my team were to use that, would they actually have to disclose that on their insurance application if they were applying for insurance? He said, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
He looked at it and said, no, that's fine. That's just a service that you're providing, that your team, so hopefully they don't have, any severe anxiety that leads into mental illness. So he said, no, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not. And secondly, I said, okay, if I was to get Lillian to come in and coach one or two of my team members or do a group thing where it's not a medical thing. Now we don't know anything about it because the discussion is but it's not in this case, even though you're a doctor, this discussion is not necessarily being doctor and patient.
Right.
We've engaged you to help them. How do I think about this to be able to do this, to be able to get this done?
Yeah.
So it's like work performance in a way.
Improve
Yeah,
skills. Yeah.
correct. And
Mhm.
it's to think about things. And he said, no, that wouldn't be. But if they engaged you from a psychologist's perspective, then obviously that would have to be. So
Yeah.
it was interesting that perspective from an underwriter. So if you think that the individual might need to go a bit deeper on this, you might go from coach to psychologist from that perspective and
Mhm.
engage them differently. Um, but going back to contain your brain, I'm talking now as an employer. Um, So there's two things that, from my perspective, contain your brain, and why I first came up and introduced myself to you to find out more about it was, how do I help my team on everyday performance or perform better and
Mhm.
actually for themselves, and not end up having, I have to take a stress day, or I have
Yeah.
to take so from a financial aspect, that makes sense. From a safety aspect, which I'd like you to touch on if that's okay, it's very important, I think.
Mhm.
If you're causing stress and you're not doing stuff for your employees, you can actually now, well, you will get sued, and potentially even face jail time, I think, from our memory when Merit Horizons girls went through it with us, as an
Mm. Mhm.
well. But also, too, there's just a human side of caring for the people that
Yeah.
you spend most of your time. So you spend a third of your day with your work colleagues,
Yeah.
supposed to be a third of the day at home and then a third of the day asleep.
Right.
So a third of your day or your life is spent with your work colleagues. So from an employer's perspective, even just caring for your employer. So
Yeah.
can you talk about us and how Contain Your Brain not just helps the employee or my work colleagues here that we spoke about, but also helps the employer as
Yeah.
well?
Well, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. I always say good mental health is great for business. I think that a lot of people, I mean, I think more and more people, business owners and leaders are aware of that. There's so much out there, reports out there, research out there that shows that. Um, there was a report done by PwC and Beyond Blue several years ago now, but they reported that businesses were losing $11 billion a year due to mental health issues. Um, that included because of absenteeism, so people not showing up to work or sick days or and presenteeism, which is they're showing up but they're not as productive, and also the insurance claims as well. But if you actually put an effective mental health initiative in place, the ROI is like 2.3. You improve your culture, people are more productive, they perform better, you get better retention and less turnover and all of those things. So not only are the mental health initiatives really good for the employees, they're also really great for the business. But in terms of where Contain Your Brain is going, so we have Contain Your Brain, the OG Contain Your Brain, which sits in the app stores and it's free. And it is a well-being app that will help you worry less, so that you can live your life the way you want to, without all that clutter in your brain. But what we're doing with the workplace version is we are going to assist workplaces to adhere to the new psychological health laws that are coming into place December 1st this year. So if people aren't aware, and a lot of people aren't, I've spoken to a lot of business owners and they haven't been aware. So that means that a lot of people aren't ready for these laws quite yet. And I think particularly the small and medium sized businesses, so the SMEs, they're the most
Ones who don't
vulnerable.
have their own HR team.
Exactly. They don't
Yeah.
have people, constantly looking at the legislation and the changes, and the documents are long.
It was Julia and Emmeline who actually brought it to our attention and went through everything with us,
Right.
so they're on a 2-year contract with us as our HR team,
Mhm.
and then they helped with, explaining all of that to all of our team here and putting the clarity agreements in place as well. So these are the things which, were really important from that, but it was just, I just looked at that and I thought,
Yeah,
how many of our SME clients do not know about this?
I know, and so I think there's like 74,000 SMEs in Victoria
Yeah.
alone.
They're
So
not all our clients, by the way, too. So
probably not. You might have a
yeah.
large percentage of them, but
Yeah.
but a lot of them first aren't aware. Now, even if they are aware, I mean, how many of them are gonna have the time to really go through everything to be able to adhere to this new legislation in the spirit of it? I mean, there's lots of documents that you can find on the WorkSafe website, and if you haven't gone there, I suggest you do, but that they're long. I just downloaded a report, was like 120 pages.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm gonna read it, but I don't know that a lot of people are gonna read it.
Yeah.
And they there are simpler ways of getting this information out there and making sure that people comply. The reason why these laws are in place is because there's always been legislation around keeping people safe at work. But how that's been interpreted for the most part has been to keep them physically safe.
Yes.
It was meant to cover psychosocial health as well, but it just hasn't been what people had paid attention to. And so that's why they've decided to introduce these new laws to say, like, you actually have to, it's not an option, keep people psychologically safe as well. And so with Contain Your Brain, what we're going to do is we are creating a compliance tool for businesses to make that process of identifying hazards, assessing the risk, putting controls in place and reviewing and consulting with your teams much, much easier. And also for those who have to report, that's any business that has 50 or more employees will have to report as well, making that an easy process as well. So it will be basically Contain Your Brain, the original for the employees, plus uh, a corporate worry box, a
Yeah.
workplace worry box, so that
Anonymous.
yes.
Yeah.
So everything about our app up until now has been about safety and privacy, and that won't change.
Yeah.
So the worry box will really be a tool that employees can use to report any concerns anonymously. And that will be aggregated then for the employers as one of the consultation tools for them to identify the potential psychosocial hazards in the workplace. And then when they know about it, to go through kind of the workflow of how you actually deal and manage those hazards. And then, like I said, having that data to report any issues that need to be reported.
I think what you've touched on there, can end up saving lives. The worry box, suggestion box as an example.
Mm.
And I know an example that was provided to us when we went through the new laws was a cafe or a restaurant. I think it was here in Victoria. No, it was definitely in Victoria, where a young girl that worked there ended up committing suicide. But she'd been continually harassed and bullied,
Right.
and she ended up committing suicide. And the employer was the one who ended up getting sued. In fairness, though, the employer knew what was happening, and the employer's son was part of that harassment as well. And they actually knew what was happening also. But this young
Wow.
girl ended up committing suicide.
That's
Yeah,
awful.
and that's where these rules, they are just so vitally important. They're in place.
Yeah.
It's a sad world that we live in that they have to be, to put it bluntly, in my opinion, anyway. But they are there for a reason, and they are there for a reason because of harassment that can happen to males and females, of
Yeah.
a whole different variety of harassment. And one of the examples that was given to us was just being left out.
Yeah.
Having a group chat, and two or three people aren't included in that group chat. So it's just an online group chat, but they're excluded from it, and that can cause anxiety and stress as well.
Sure. I mean, the range of hazards is quite broad. So you have like you were talking about, like bullying, harassment, trauma. And then there's also work demands or work design or lack of reward and recognition that are possible hazards as well.
Yeah.
So I think having a tool like Contain Your Brain will help SMEs not only comply, but also help raise the awareness of what the hazards are, what you can do about them, and then whether the actions they're putting in place are actually working or not, not in just their opinion, but in the opinion of their staff and employees. Because the legislation requires consultation with the employees all through the process. And I think that's really important that there's that two-way feedback. So yeah, I do hope that, I mean, the purpose of Contain Your Brain moving into this space is really to make this process easier for SMEs because we want them to be able to protect their staff and protect themselves.
Absolutely. And
And we want it to be private and safe as
that's the
well.
human element also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will put a link to Contain Your Brain in this episode as well. Now, it's come a little bit of a tradition here, probably over the last few months, where we're going to ask you some rapid fire questions. There's nothing bad in here, but
I might take like an hour to answer each of them.
well, I just thought of one that I will throw in. It has nothing to do with AFL football.
Okay.
Okay. So what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I play a brain game.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
great.
That's what I do.
Yep. So coffee or green smoothie in the morning?
Coffee.
Yeah, I knew that was the answer. What's one book every entrepreneur or change maker should read?
That's a good one, but I don't read a lot of those books. Because I'm in psychology and I don't want to read more more stuff about psychology.
Yeah.
But probably the ones that I would choose. I think the one, oh gosh, his name, James
Clear?
Clear.
The Atomic Habits?
Yeah, I think that one's super helpful.
Yeah.
That research has been around for years and years, but he's just, has a way with words
He
and
does.
conceptualizing it and creating small positive habits consistently over, time
Compound
is,
effect.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, really powerful.
Yeah. So if you weren't in business and psychology, what do you think you'd be doing?
There's like 100 things I would be doing.
Let's go for the number one thing that you would be doing.
Someone just asked me this question. Maybe something in sports or movies or TV, something like that. So
As an actor or writer or
I think in the creative aspects.
Yeah.
So maybe a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could be an actor.
I'm sure you could write a good Netflix series with a few, many hours of discussions that you've had with individuals.
Well, I have like 5 books like on my laptop.
Mm,
They're just not finished.
mm.
So if there are any publishers out there, I'm ready to go.
Well, I have the synopsis for 23 chapters of the book I've written. So it's which will eventually come out. So
Right.
it's who's one Australian or global entrepreneur or leader that you really admire right now?
Am I allowed to say you?
Just go and
Tony.
edit that part out.
Well, you're sitting right in front of me. I love that you are so psychologically minded, and you have been since the day I met you, and obviously many years before that. And also, we wouldn't have asked you to be on our advisory board if we didn't value you completely. And you've been such an asset, and we're so happy and proud to have you on our board. So I get to say you, and you get to take it.
Well, I have to accept it unless Bella edits that out. But I will humbly say thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. So, most underrated skill in business or life? Or an underrated skill?
Validation.
Okay.
Validation is when you communicate that you understand where someone's coming from and that however they're feeling is reasonable and understandable. And most people are problem solvers and focused on change. And what people often want is just validation. And when you jump into change and problem solving, they've just switched off and they're not going to talk to you again. So validation.
I made that comment once is I'm not telling you this because I want you to fix me. I'm telling you this because I just need to say it.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of time that's the case.
I don't want to hold it in like my father used to do. Yeah. I think I know the answer to this one. But what's your guilty pleasure after a long work week or even every day? It's
pajamas and television, probably.
yeah, it's Boyana made the comment that everyone always comments about you in your suit and tie every day, but they don't see you at home in your pair of pajamas and grubby t-shirt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have one that's, like, got shreds, but it's the most comfortable
Oh,
thing
yeah.
ever, and I can't let it go.
I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
Early mornings or late nights?
Late nights.
Yeah. So it's I started yawning at about 4 a.m. up in Sydney. Whereas
Mm.
usually I'm really sort of getting up about that time, not going to bed.
Yeah,
So,
that's impressive.
yeah, it was only a couple times a year I can do that. So it's not an every weekend thing anymore. So it's,
Yeah.
that's been a few decades since I've done that.
No, if I'm not regulated or by other people, I would
You
go
were
to
a,
sleep
you
at
were a
2.
Palmer and Co with us. It wasn't just me there by myself.
Yeah, no, I'm a night owl.
Yep. Uh, if you could give your 21-year-old self one sentence of advice, what would it be? How old's your daughter now? 18? 19?
She's just turned 19 a couple days ago.
That's right. I did see the post. She's got striking eyes, your daughter. I'm sure you
She
hear that all the
does.
time. How does she get blue eyes?
Yeah. I mean, I don't
They're
know.
bluey grey
I
too.
think
It's just they're that real blue. It's just it's
yeah.
really yeah.
It was the genetic doesn't make anomaly, it doesn't make any sense.
Your husband's Italian heritage?
Greek.
Greek. Okay, so
We both have
sorry
brown
about that.
eyes. Brown.
Yeah, that's right. So it's
Yeah.
it's obviously a throwback from a generation or two.
Yeah, and my son has green eyes.
Oh, there you go.
It makes no sense. I mean, my mother and his mother both have green eyes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's
Okay.
more direct to that. But still, it shouldn't happen. It's supposed to be brown dominant.
Yes, exactly right. So
Yeah.
it's my mum has two completely different coloured eyes, and
Wow,
not
that's
that
unusual,
yeah,
like
not
David Bowie.
yeah, but David Bowie was through an accident.
Oh, I didn't
So
realize.
my mum, maybe as a smoker, she only smoked and smoked when in one side of her. I don't know. But
I didn't know that could happen.
so the 21-year-old self, or close to your daughter's age, what
Hmm.
bit of advice would you, and what's the sense of advice, or what would it be?
I think for me, the most important thing, I think for everybody, is to have those relationships. So, like, not just family, but friends. Like, make sure you cultivate and see the importance in maintaining your family and your friendship. I guess, and I guess my other value is just fun. Like, have fun. I don't need to tell her. I don't need to tell her that. But yeah, and I think I've always had that kind of side to me too, like making room for fun.
Yeah,
So just keeping
yeah,
that going. Yeah.
yeah. No, I agree. What's one app you can't live without, excluding email and socials?
Contain your brain.
I think that's a wonderful app. It is downloaded on my phone. Belly, you can download it for free. So it's most valuable thing you've recently learned from a mistake.
Hmm. So many mistakes in life. I mean, for me, like, I think because of what I do, I don't judge myself very much. It's just not part of like what happens in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So when mistakes happen, they happen, and you either have to do something about it or you don't. And I kind of just accept it and move on if I don't have to do anything about it. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think there's learning from some mistakes, and for some, there's just that happened.
Yeah, I learned to do that as well.
Yeah.
A number of years ago now. It's just like, hmm, okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Sometimes it
it hasn't
is.
hurt anyone. It hasn't really
Yeah.
hurt me. It's just like,
Sometimes it's
okay.
like, oh, well,
Yeah,
oh, I put my foot, like sometimes I put my foot in my mouth and I then, like everyone does that. And then you go home and you're like, oh, gosh, I didn't realize that might have been a bit insensitive, or they probably don't like me anymore or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Um, those are probably the mistakes that I don't like the most. But again, I'm not going to spend hours and hours ruminating about it. It's already done. And if I see that person again, I'm going to be like, trying to either repair it
yeah,
or just make sure that I'm more careful with the way that I word things,
yeah.
and more, be more sensitive to people. And that's all you can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
3 words people would use to describe you.
Calm,
Yes.
even though I'm not always calm.
I've never seen you anything but calm.
Optimistic, fun, hopefully.
I'll definitely throw in there genuine.
Thank you.
Yeah, unbelievably genuine and extremely humble. I do know we both love going to live music.
Mhm.
So give me name of 3 of your all-time favorite bands. Now, you don't have to come back to
Oh
our
my
lane and say,
gosh.
"Oh my god, I forgot to say them." Tell me
So many.
Yeah,
How about I'll base it on concerts. My favorite concerts have been Lenny Kravitz.
25th of November, Rod Laver Arena.
Oh, good. I'm gonna have to buy tickets to that.
This podcast will probably go out after that. So wasn't it an amazing concert, Lenny Kravitz, on the 25th of November?
Gosh.
Yeah.
George Michael was an amazing concert. I saw him in Sydney the last time he was here.
Okay.
It was beautiful.
Early 2000s or
It would have been 2010 maybe? 10 or 11? It was at the same time as Mardi Gras that year, which was super fun.
perfect. Perfect timing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love so many different bands and so much music. Like I was saying to you before the podcast, I wanted to go to Garbage and got distracted and didn't get the tickets exactly at 10,
Hmm.
and now they're all the good ones are gone, so
I'm sure at the Palais, that there's a good chance that they might do a second one if there was so much demand for the first.
yeah, I thought of that, but when bands, they leave room for second ones, but
Yeah.
there was no room left for a second one. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah. True.
every different place, like Sydney was like the next day.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about that, but I'll keep my eyes open for
Chris
sure.
Isaac was good there.
Mhm.
I know we were both there on
Oh,
the
yeah, we
same
were both
night.
there, yeah.
But I tell you, a group that I saw there was actually a cover band, and it was one of the most fun nights I've actually had watching a band play or live music actually at the Palais. It was Bjorn Again, the ABBA
Oh,
tribute band. It was fantastic because everyone of our
I'm
generation is
sure.
dancing in the aisles, and I was probably one of the younger people there.
I'm sure that's so much fun.
Oh, that
There's
was
been some good concerts there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there have
I
been.
saw George Benson there.
Okay.
I saw Air Supply there. I
First
saw the Black Crowes
first
there.
concert I took my oldest to was Kiss there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was first concert his mum actually ever went to that I took her to was Kiss with the MSO at
Mhm.
what's now not Rod Laver, Marvel Stadium.
Mm.
So yeah, I've seen Kiss 12 times. Don't mind Kiss. Yes,
Wow.
the first concert I ever went to was Kiss.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
just keep
wow.
that tradition rolling. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen Guns N' Roses every time they've come here too.
Well, I'll see them the next time because I don't know why, but I keep missing. I've always liked them.
Yeah.
I like Def Leppard. I like Chili Peppers. I like so many different
Did you see
bands.
Def Leppard probably a year and a half ago? Uh,
No, but I
Def Leppard and
saw
Motley
them.
Crue
I've
came
seen them
out.
like 3 times. I didn't
Okay.
see them the last
Def
one.
Leppard, they were tight. They were
Mhm.
really good. So
Billy Idol.
I have not seen Billy Idol live.
I've seen him like 5
I
times.
just bought his best of album actually. Probably a couple of weeks ago, the LP. So
Yeah.
it's
David Bowie was a great
yeah,
like so
I
many.
saw David Bowie.
Prince.
I missed him. I didn't
Mm,
see Prince in concert. So
yeah.
yeah, no, fantastic.
We could go on and on and on telling about
We
this.
could.
Mm,
November's always a great month in Melbourne for concerts and
it
live
is.
music and theatre. Last question. Finish this sentence. Success is.
Great quality of life, freedom, flexibility, fun.
Dr. Lillian Nejad, my friend, thank you for coming in and being a repeat offender today.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
The Kofkin Bond podcast is a product from Kofkin Bond and Company, which we are an authorized representative of Count Financial. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional, finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decision, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from the podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Kofkin Bond website, or you can find resources on the ASIC website and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Kofkin Bond Co. and the host of the Kofkin Bond podcast acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.